All right, ladies and gentlemen, as the search continues for Flight 370, why don't we welcome in, and I'm very honored to say we have Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Republican from Illinois, Deputy Republican Whip, a man who has served his country so proudly. In fact, he is a major right now in the U.S. Air National Guard Reserve. And Congressman, Major, welcome, sir. Proud to have you on.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, and I'm going to call in more because you say nice things about me.
Well,
You say nice things about
how can I
politicians.
not? How can I? I'll give you another one. I've liked your work on I know you've been on several times on Fox talking about this plane. Let me ask you, sir. And you know they're calling this section the most inaccessible area on Earth, where the
Yeah.
plane is being looked for now off the coast, 1,500 miles off the coast of Australia in the Indian Ocean. What do you think is going to happen? Are they going to find this debris field either as it was indicated on the satellite, or if it does exist, wherever it exists?
Well, here's where my worry is when what we see on those satellite images may not even be debris from an airplane. It's just debris. That said, they were it's getting to be almost a week old, and so the fact that debris could keep floating for that long is something that concerns me too, because eventually this stuff will just sink to the floor. And so I'm getting, every day that goes by, I get more worried that we're just simply not going to get answers to this. It's a vast ocean. I mean, the area they're looking at, or at least at one point the area that they were looking at, was the size of basically the continental United States. And so, imagine not even it being land, but just water, stuff to crash and then in essence sink to the ground. This is a little worrisome to me that we're never going to get answers, and I hope that's not the case. But every day that goes by makes it more likely.
I mean, obviously the jobs are so very different, but I mean, we're talking to you now as Special Ops, Air Combat Command, Air Mobility Command, Air National Guard. But the people who are conducting the searches now in that area, based on the satellite sightings, in that remote area, so far off the shore, with bad weather sometimes, what are they up against?
This is the equivalent of dropping a needle on your carpet, somewhere on your carpet, and then taking a soda straw and looking through that soda straw and trying to find a needle on the carpet.
Wow.
And you may multiply that by 5 even. So they're up against, the badness of the weather, the roughness of the ocean, the speeding currents, and the fact that, again, this stuff sinks. We'd hope that life preservers or seat cushions and stuff would stay afloat, and they probably will, but it's all spreading out in a huge way. It's not easy to see a seat cushion floating on the ocean. And so, the problem is we need to get answers to what happened. And, I've heard some valid theories. I still think the most valid theory is probably the simplest, which is you had a pilot or two pilots, probably one, for whatever reason, that decided to do this. And keep in mind, I think there was an incident pretty recently where a pilot had actually gone crazy on an American jet, went out to use the bathroom, and the co-pilot actually stood up and locked the door, locked the pilot out.
Yeah, the crew and the passengers kept him at bay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think about a situation where a pilot goes up to use the restroom, and that's the opportunity for whoever the bad pilot is to lock the door. After 9/11, you got these hardened doors, the cockpit doors. Remember before 9/11, pilots flew with the door open. You could go up and talk to them and everything. They got this hardened doors, which is good for keeping bad people out of the cockpit, but it's also bad for keeping bad people in the cockpit. And so, it's scary. I also think that there's a level of expertise here, because it's at the point when the air traffic control handoff was happening that this disappeared. So if you're the controller that's handing off the aircraft to the next controller, you wipe it from your radar screen. The next controller receiving the handoff gets basically a flashing indication that it's ready to be handed off. And then all of a sudden, he may see the pilot turn west and think, okay, well, obviously he needed to divert. He was talking to the prior controller, not my problem. And so it seems like whatever happened, it was either an amazingly timed catastrophic event, or this was somebody that knew what they were doing.
Right, and when you hear about the, I don't know the technical words for it, I should, the computer that was programmed, that these turns and the flight pattern and was all programmed either on the plane that day or prior to it taking off, again, by someone who had knowledge, the communications being turned off, probably by someone who had knowledge if there wasn't some catastrophic incident. It just does lead you to believe that there was some kind of nefarious plan here.
Right, and I think about, I flew Boeing 707s in the Air Force for a little bit. It's a KC-135, and you think about if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, they just kind of know how to fly the airplane. In essence, like what happened on 9/11, they're going to probably hand fly it. They may put autopilot on and then correct by hand flying it. But somebody that knows what they're doing will just type in your next waypoint and coordinate and just hit direct GPS, and this plane will just fly direct to that. So obviously, if in fact it was predetermined GPS waypoints that were put in, it was probably one of the two pilots that knew what they were doing. I mean, keep in mind though, I think again, what's probably likely at the end of the day, and I'm reiterating reiterations and speculating on what people have already speculated, but what's likely at the end of the day is this may be a pilot that just decided he wanted to die and take unfortunately a couple hundred people with him.
Oh, but playing devil's advocate here, or casting doubt on that theory, or asking the question, even if you do buy into that theory, then why, if he did lock the cockpit, if he did have control, or if he even pre-programmed it and overrode any ability to manually guide the plane, why didn't he just put into a nosedive and crash it? Why is it missing? Why can't we find it? I just don't get that. Do you think it's possible that this plane could have flown to a country that was ready to have it, or a group of people within a country that was ready to have it, made provisions for a landing strip, the whole thing?
Look, at the risk of being proved wrong, let me say in the best of scenarios that may be good for the couple hundred people on board. To be alive, obviously be bad for national security or whatever the reason was. I would have thought that if that was the case, maybe a ransom note or something would have come forward by now. But it's also, think about the fact that to build an airstrip that a 777 can land on is it would totally be seen by satellites and whatever else, intel, anything. Or if it's a pre-existing airport, the idea that a Boeing 777 could land and be hidden and nobody say anything, it's almost into the September 11th theory when people say, you hear people with the crazy conspiracy theories on 9/11.
Right.
Nobody's come forward and said that that's in fact true, and that's kind of the situation here. An airport worker, somebody would come forward and say, I saw the plane land in Pakistan or whatever the theories are. I'm not going to rule anything out because this whole thing is Amelia Earhart crazy stuff, but I think at the end of the day, the most likely scenario, look, if you're going to commit suicide, why not just take it for one last spin, fly it way out in the ocean, and know that if you go out into a rough part of the sea and crash there, that people will never know that it was a suicide.
Yeah, I mean, trying to get inside the heads of, or the head of somebody who has that kind of intent. I mean, the sane can't really get into the head of somebody who wants to do that to himself and to all those people.
That's right.
Congressman, while I have you, let me just ask you. We keep every day horror stories about Obamacare. Today we find out there's another what they call glitch, where a Philadelphia Inquirer uncovered that when they put in hypothetical income on the website, into the calculator to find out if you're eligible for a subsidy, the website was going on outdated poverty levels. So the answers to those questions and the answers to those specific incomes were wrong because it's not using up-to-date numbers. I mean, it just doesn't stop. Is this going to be the issue going forward for the midterm elections? I mean, because you hear Pelosi, you hear Debbie Wasserman Schultz say, oh, we're proud of it and America loves it. I mean, they can't be real, right?
No, look, I think they're scared to death of it. They may love the idea of it. I hope they do because it just means we're going to defeat them. Look at the basics of Obamacare, which nobody's talking about. The fact is you may get a premium subsidy. Somebody's paying for that premium subsidy, by the way. But let's say you get a premium subsidy. What they're not talking about is that your deductibles are going up to $2,500, $5,000. So they can subsidize your premium, but you're really increasing what you're going to pay out of pocket.
You're the only person who has ever volunteered that without me bringing it up first. I have said all along, you never hear deductible across the lips of Obama when he's talking to the young people or to any of them. The deductible is the killer.
That's right. And you wait till states like Illinois get their federal help for their expansion of Medicaid dried up. Illinois is in terrible shape. And I'll say on a bigger picture of this too. If you want to, the president talks about his, minimum wage and all his kind of class warfare stuff he's revving up to, which is the shiny red ball to try to distract people from what's really going on in the economy. Look at where Illinois is at. That's the blueprint that Obama's following. He's from Illinois. He was raised in that environment. Illinois has 9% unemployment. Illinois is not losing jobs to India anymore. It's losing them to Indiana, a state that's a carbon copy of Illinois in terms of topography and weather. Look at Illinois and say, is that what we want America to look like? If it is, great. Keep putting the same people in office. If it isn't, we've got to make a change.
Yeah. Congressman, good to talk to you. I hope you will come back, sir.
Oh, I'd love to. It was great chatting.
Thank you.
Take
You
care.
too. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, the Deputy Republican Whip, Republican from the great state of Illinois. And what a proud military record. Second lieutenant back in November of '03. Later awarded his pilot wings. He served in the Air Force Special Ops, as I said, Air Combat Command, Air Mobility Command, Air National Guard. He's currently a major in the Air Force. Just a tremendous amount of service to his country, and now, of course, a key part of the leadership in the House of Representatives. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It would be so, if that plane managed to land, and I still don't put it out of the realm of possibility, but if that's what happens, if we one day somehow discover that plane landed somewhere, man, are we all in trouble. We are all in trouble. I'm not just talking about them using that plane. The way we would find out, I don't think they had an interest in hostages and ransom. I think they if it landed, they wanted the plane for future terroristic purposes. And one day we'll see it in the air somewhere in an attempt at terror, and then we'll know it had landed one day. But if it did, can you imagine, with the whole world's resources and the whole world's satellite system and the whole world's radar, unless there are countries, for whatever reason, security reasons in their own mind, not wanting to reveal what they know, that don't dare come public with what they know because they don't want people to know that they have that capability. But I thought we all had the capability. I thought there were satellites in the air and we could see everything. We could zoom in anywhere. Google, what do they call that? When you could Google zoom into someone's, Google Earth, right? I thought if we could do that on the computer, that the world's governments have the whole place covered all the time. How can a plane disappear? And no one knows where it was seen last. I mean, that's insane, right? Maybe CNN's right. Maybe it went into the black hole, whatever that is. Anyway, but then again, if someone was going to kill themselves, why go through the whole thing of pre-programming it and turning and going backwards and going here? It seems like there was a purpose to the flight plan, more so than just taking it into the middle of the ocean. So I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the whole thing. And I will not turn the show into CNN. I think it's a story, and my heart breaks and bleeds for the families, but it's not a. When there's no new news to talk about, you can't do it more than but once or twice a show. All right, folks, we're coming back. Don't go away. Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.
The Steve Malzberg Show.